The Jedi is seen as a force for good within the galaxy, but even they made some questionable decisions, with their policy of taking small children away from their families often seen as one of them. Hold on to your lightsabers.
What?
As we take a trip back to 1996, to when George Lucas first decided that the Jedi should be recruited at such a young age.
He is too old.
A decision that would ultimately go on to doom the galaxy.
You're fulfilling your destiny.
And may do so again in future stories to come. This excerpt comes from the Star Wars Archives book covering the prequel trilogy written by Paul Duncan, in which George poses himself the question, why do the Jedi take the kids when they're young? I have to come up with an answer even though it doesn't show up in the script. There has to be logic behind why that happens. This is Anakin's Achilles heel that ultimately comes into play when he grows up. He was too old to part from his mother. As a result, later he fell in love and he couldn't bear to part from his wife when he found out she was going to die in childbirth. Therefore, when the devil came to say, I can bring her back, he fell for it, even though it was a lie. You see, this was a Jedi principle that was first hinted at in The Empire Strikes Back, when Yoda told Ben in front of Luke that he was too old to begin the training, and then later in the prequel trilogy, we understood just what Yoda meant through the story of Luke's father, Anakin, who showed us exactly why the Jedi had such a rule. Anakin, and any other youngling for that matter, were at the risk of having their feelings exploited and fall into the dark side if they had any emotional attachment to someone or something. George continues by saying Obi-Wan begins as this strong Jedi character, but when you see all 6 movies, you'll see that what Ben is doing with Luke is very close to the same mistake he made with Anakin. So there's this underlying current that he's going to make the same mistake again, that Luke's going to turn into a Sith instead of having him redeem Darth Vader. That's the big tension in this whole thing. Can Obi-Wan right the wrong that he's done? You see, to me it was clear that Obi-Wan wasn't the right mentor for Anakin. It's been said that had Qui-Gon trained him, things would have been different, as Obi-Wan was more like a brother than a father. Luke had a different upbringing with a family and a normal life until he was 19. Anakin, on the other hand, learned about the Force and the Jedi when he was only 9. Luke's life changed drastically when the droids arrived on Tatooine, where he started his new journey, effectively a whole new life. Obi-Wan had to provide the proper guidance this time around without any mistakes. George continues by saying that ultimately this trilogy is about the relationship between Anakin and Padme. She's much more than a wife. It's a complex, slightly dysfunctional relationship. And it resolves itself in a similar way to how Ben resolved the issue of Anakin, which is that when one person dies, something new is born. So when Anakin's mother, who is a key player in all of this, dies, something is born in Anakin that becomes Darth Vader. When Anakin is in the process of becoming Darth Vader, Padme finally lets go of him. And Paul Duncan replies to George by saying, and in a way, that after Ben dies in Star Wars, it reaffirms Luke's belief and trust in the Force. To which George replies, the core of Anakin's problem is that the Jedi are raised from birth, so they learn to let go of everything. They're trained more than anything else to understand the transitional nature of life, that things are constantly changing and you can't hold on to anything. You can love things, but you can't be attached to them. You must be willing to let the flow of life and the flow of the Force move through your life, move through you, so that you can be compassionate and loving and caring, but not be possessive and grabbing and holding on to things and trying to keep things the way they are.
You will not take it from me!
Letting go is the central theme of the film. And ultimately, Anakin never learned to let go, and in my opinion, he was never meant to. His attachments were the reason he fell to the dark side, as Palpatine exploited his fear of losing Padme, but they were also the reason he came back to the light in Return of the Jedi. His love for Padme resurfaced at a vital time and strengthened his emotional connection to Luke, which resulted in him becoming Anakin Skywalker once again. Now, some people criticize the Jedi for recruiting children and forbidding attachments. They think that a new Jedi should be different, but there is a logic behind this rule. As George explained, it's a way to protect them from the dark side, which feeds on emotions. As George said, when the devil tempted him, Anakin couldn't resist because of his attachment to Padme. So there we have it, a harsh but necessary step taken by the Jedi in a bid to preserve the light within a galaxy that's constantly under threat from the dark side. Now, do you agree that this is the right decision taken by the Jedi, or do you feel they should be allowed to have attachments? Let me know down in the comments below. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you.